Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Vegas Legion have made a change. Standy will join the roster for the Major 4 cycle upcoming and possibly on paper what might well be the most competitive roster Vegas have ever fielded. Is it good enough though to make it through to the World Championship? That will be their goal, but will this move work out in the medium term? Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Plenty to discuss. Firstly, the changes that Treyarch are saving Infinity Ward's game with, bringing him on that Expo into the ranked play rotation to the competitive map pool. There's a lot of optimism about this map being viable. We believe the pros think that it's for sure good enough for control and probably for search and destroy as well. The question is, will it come in for search? We know that the pros want to get rid of Fortress and that probably will happen shortly. For search, there's a bit of a question mark because some teams dislike Fortress search, some teams dislike Mikado search, so getting them to agree on which one is gone for Expo, if Expo is better than either of those, is a bit of a question mark. But what Treyarch have decided is like, look, let's add it into ranked, see what the fans think, and this is just a great sign all across the board. So Ghosty was playing it last night, getting some practice on it. There's mixed opinions so far, but the pros seem relatively confident that indeed it is the way to go. The issue is though, the funny thing is that the pros can't even play this yet, I believe, because their side of the game that they play on, especially for the matches, is not yet updated because of the glitches. Now, those glitches have, I believe, in the last few hours now been resolved, but we saw the last few days the reason that was preventing the pros playing on the new patch update was this kind of death cam glitch where sometimes you'd die and you wouldn't get a kill cam. Now, they said in the patch they released yesterday that they fixed this, so seemingly just in time because the Challengers Cup, I believe, begins today, and you know, they obviously fixed this in time. The issue is with the Infinity Wards that every time they fix anything, there's always something that breaks, and this happened to aBeZy here last night. Many pros were experiencing this, that sometimes the screen would just fade to black, and I believe it was a consequence of this fix for the game. Like, aBeZy obviously can't see anything here, and it's like, okay, what is going on here? So this seemed to be, well, clearly an unintended consequence of the game fix they brought in, and like, you just can't see anything here at all. So instead of fixing the kill cams, this started to happen, where the game would just fade to black, and Doug wasn't happy about this either. He was like, the new update makes your screen black and you can't see. Massive tourney tomorrow, need a hot fix for this one ASAP, and in just the last few hours, they did tweet, because Treyarch say that we've disabled the recent fade to black update intended for eliminated players only, because it was causing some issues, and Infinity Ward then apparently have fixed this problem and say they would just release a fix that returns functionality in this feature in ranked play as intended. So hopefully that is the case, and yeah, Infinity Ward fixed something, it broke something else, now they fix that. Hopefully that didn't break something else, but potentially it means though that Expo is now playable, and Octane wasn't happy. He said, love that Expo is being added to ranked play in the map pool when it's impossible to scrim on, which, okay, fair enough. From Octane's perspective, I'm sure the fans want to be able to play this, you know, the player base wants to be able to play this in ranked play right now, and yeah, okay, the pros couldn't play on it for the last few days because the game was broken, but even as Octane says, added into the map pool, so it does seem like the pros have probably voted that it's going in, and it's only a matter of time until they can actually play it, probably today, if indeed that glitch has now been resolved, and Expo is playable for the pros as well, so they'll have a few days to practice on it, and also to decide whether it's coming in for search and destroy or not, but I'm pretty sure it'll be there for control instead of Fortress, but it's cool that we actually get to test it in ranked play as it stands with the new update. Let's talk roster mania then. Lots to say on this today. Firstly, on the Raven side, confirming uLLeY joining the team. This is not iLLeY Aqua, commonly kind of misconception there, but this is iLLeY, another player in Challengers, been upcoming for the last couple of years, SMG, potential superstar for the London team. It was quite clear they needed to make a change like this. The team was lacking from their SMG perspective. X and Nasty, when they switched roles, Nasty became very good on the flex in stage 3, was their best player by a mile, I thought, to be honest. They needed really an upgrade from X though in the SMG department, because he's not really best suited to that particular role. So iLLeY's coming in. Of course, iLLeY was part of the team that won the Challengers event in Boston at Major 2, when Ghosty was on this team, joined OpTic, 2 was joining Vegas. Now he's still at Vegas, we'll see in a second, but he's not going to be starting for the team. iLLeY though is now at the Ravens, Nagafen is at Vegas as their coach, and Fellow at the Mutineers. So this entire team ended up getting spots in the league, and now iLLeY is one of those. So I think they've been doing rather well with iLLeY the last few days. Looking forward to how they'll play. I believe London's schedule here is tough though for stage 4. They definitely play Thieves first, I think. They also play OpTic, I think, on the Sunday. So their first week, London, I believe, is Thieves and OpTic, which is far from easy. But if they can get one win out of those two series, that'd be a big result for them. And they honestly need it, right? Because they need the points badly if they want to have any chance of making champs. But I do feel like this should be an upgrade for this roster. On paper, it makes more sense. The team team dynamics make more sense. If iLLeY can deliver what he's been doing in challenges, which is not exactly a guarantee, but when 2ill was picked up, there were some questions. Why 2ill or not iLLeY? Because on paper, iLLeY seemed like the guy to get in terms of SMG Slayer, but now Vegas have a different idea as to what they want to do with that particular player. Now, Standy tweeted this last night, which did get deleted, and I know that there was some discussion, maybe he was roasting Doug Martinez for dropping 7 or whatever the case was, but obviously he's in a casino. Well, this GIF is in a casino, right? So we were thinking, okay, casino, Vegas, is that a thing? And then Standy didn't delete this for a few hours, and I was like, okay, maybe there's more to this than we thought with the whole casino Vegas connection, and turns out maybe there was, because it was confirmed not long afterwards that Vegas are signing Standy to their team. This is the move that made the most sense to me when I discussed it the other day. We looked at the options. We looked at Surge, we looked at potentially Rokkr, we looked at, Florida, London, these teams that might consider moves, but Vegas to me made the most sense. Standy getting a chance to join a team that's well liked at the moment. The fans want this Legion team to do well and make it far. Also, the upgrade made sense, I think, across the board. To get into a team with Clay as well and Temp and TJ is not something you just pass up, right? Yes, maybe in recent years in Vanguard and maybe in Cold War, you don't want the Vegas or the Paris as it was at the time, that spot, because if you get it, your career might be over when the team does badly. But when you get the chance to team with Clay, Temp and TJ, like, that's not an opportunity you turn down. And Standy obviously thinks the same way. And Standy, I'm sure, knows that despite he's got a high ceiling, the guy can shoot very straight on his day, can be incredibly impactful, but does make some, let's just say, left stick mistakes, right? The guy doesn't always make the best decisions. I'm sure that he knows that himself, and he knows that his ability could be more impactful than he has been over the last couple of seasons. And, he got dropped from Rokkr, got dropped now from Toronto, and, well, Toronto have gone on to win an event since then, so I'm sure he knows that there's room for improvement. And if there's one guy in the league that you'd want to play with to try and get the most out of you as a player right now, it's probably Clayster on this team, right? We know that 2ill looked terrible last year on the Florida Mutineers. He came into this team, looked pretty respectable. He wasn't exactly a superstar or anything, 2ill, but I thought in the respawns, he was a pretty respectable player, did his job, looked like a passable CDL level player, 2ill. Now, he's been replaced, and we'll discuss that in a second, but, if Clayster can bring 2ill in and get that level of performance out of him, and maybe in part that was just 2ill improving and having a better stint on Vegas than he had on Florida last year, but, if the same thing is true for Standy, then this team is actually looking pretty serious, right? And you look at the roster on paper now, Clay, Temp, TJ, and Standy, like, it's actually, got the kind of feeling of a potential contender team to mix it up at the business end of tournaments. Now, as Clayster goes on to say, confirming, because we didn't know until this tweet from Clayster who had actually been dropped. We didn't know if it was TJ or 2ill. It was obviously one of the two, and it was more likely to be 2ill, right? Because TJ, obviously good friends with Temp on the team, and okay, if you look at the numbers, it's there's nothing really between them, but the issue is, right, is the search and destroy. We know that TJ's great in search and destroy. That is a key strength that Vegas have had, and if you get rid of TJ, you do lose that advantage. There have been some questions, though, because as Clay goes on to confirm here, Brendan 2ill is still a part of the Legion, which is actually really cool. I thought that the way Vegas would operate here is just, cut 2ill off, he came in as the contract, and that's it for him. But no, they're actually keeping around as a sub, which is really cool stuff. And it's funny in a way how Vegas or Legion, having taken this approach over the last few years and getting clowned for it for good reason, are now in a much more, it seems, stable financial position than an organization like Los Angeles Guerrillas, to such an extent that they can actually support a substitute player here, which is, a great news for Legion, I suppose. And it does also open the door. I know people were discussing this possibility of a 5-man roster, as in 2ill could come in for the respawns and TJ could come in for the search and destroy. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but I think, TJ, we know that he's much better in search than he is in respawn. With this previous iteration, you know that in the respawns, it's going to be a 0.85, 0.9 at best from the SMG lineup. Now, finally, there's a player in Standy that actually has the potential to drop over a 1. I mean, how often with Legion since the start of the year, with the Pro Loot team, with the 2ill team, did we ever see the SMGs pop a 1.0 or above? Like, it's just not going to happen with those guys. Whereas when you've got a Pred, when you've got a CleanX, a Hydra, these level of players, like, they can deliver numbers like that, and you're not surprised. And when they do, the team almost certainly wins. Whereas Vegas never had that as a win condition, that their SMGs would go off, and it was always an issue from day one. Everyone knew that their SMG lineup wasn't good at the start of the season. It was obvious they needed to make an upgrade. The 2ill thing to me was never really going to be a long-term solution. And Standy, while some might say is an ideal in certain ways, is definitely an upgrade on paper. And if Clay and the guys can get a high level out of Standy, like what he had in Cold War, or even what he had right at the start of this season, then Vegas can be a serious team with finally more win conditions on the table. So as Clay says, thanks to Brendan coming in. Hope the stint helped prove to everyone he deserves to be in the league, and he has what it takes to elevate teams. It was a pleasure doing some historic stuff with you back at Major 3, of course. But if he was really so valuable, they probably wouldn't have dropped him. But these are Scump's thoughts as well on where they could potentially be now as a team.
With you.
About Standy being on Vegas, I think it's a good move, honestly. I think Vegas needed a little bit something to push themselves to that next, like,
it's already working again.
To that
yeah, it's back.
Contender
We're back.
type
I see you guys on my list now.
Absolutely.
I think it's a good move.
Send me an invitation, baby.
Yeah, I think it's a good move.
Bring us to...
So T-Real goes on to say, you know, it was an honor playing with the GOAT here, and obviously giving a lot of credit to Clay, and maybe Standy will think the same way with his brief period that he's now going to get from now to the end of the season. As Standy says, time to make the champs run. That's why you don't turn down this offer. Vegas are 9th in the league. They're not an absolute down-and-out no-hoper like they have been in previous seasons. There is a chance here to make champs. And the great thing about these storylines are that if you look at the numbers in the league, they are so close behind the Minnesota Rokkr. Of course, Standy was dropped by Toronto, but was last season dropped by the Rokkr. They decided to move him on, went in a different direction, and Standy, I'm sure, is looking for his revenge. It's a perfect storyline. And of course, you know, he's coming, and Standy says in the replies, I'm coming hard too. I guess what he means really here is, like, I'm coming for that champ spot type thing. Like, I'm sure Standy wants very much indeed to go super hard on this Vegas team and try and knock Rokkr out of the World Championship again, which would be quite the storyline indeed. Just looking at the numbers quickly, these are just over stage 3, looking at when T-Real was actually in the roster. And you can see that, I mean, first of all, Clay's engagements are actually insane. Like, Clay has by far the most engagements on his team as an AR, like, which is ridiculous. But still, if that works for them, it worked for them. But we can see in terms of KDs, right, TJ, T-Real, not the best in the hard point, certainly not the best in control. TJ has like a 0.75 in control, T-Real at a 0.87. So, I don't know, I think Standy coming in finally gives them some potential additional slaying power in the respawns, which I do think they need. If they can keep Standy on a leash and he actually makes good decisions 90% of the time, they can actually be a contender roster. TJ Search and Destroy is always going to be good. Like, he had a 1.1 in stage 2 or stage 3, sorry. Clay was the standout in that game mode though. And look, TJ's always going to be here for Search and Destroy. I think there's a good reason why they keep him around. However, if things don't go so well, do they consider that weird 5-man team where TJ comes in for the search, T-Real could come in for the respawns alongside Standy? It's an interesting question, but yeah, what do you guys think about this organization and just the situation in the comments below? I tweeted this last night and it got, you know, some traction because I think it's just really cool that what Clayster has been able to achieve here. It's not just Clay individually, but, and I know people were saying, oh, you know, people like Legion because they're an underdog team, but it's like the last couple of years, people didn't like Legion, no? I mean, they were terrible last year. I hated them because they would just always lose and it was boring. Like, I don't think there was much optimism around Legion at all, just because they were the underdog. Do they get supported at events? Not really. I think Clay's been a big part of that, and people say, oh yeah, people like Clay, so they're going to support him, but many of Clay's teams in his career have been hated, right? You know, FaZe, a lot of it was rivalry with OpTic, even on United and, you know, Dallas Empire and the like, but I just think it's a great story what Clay's been able to achieve here, and make Vegas such an exciting team to keep up with. And you look at their team now, like, it's the first time I would say realistically in their franchise history where you actually look at them and say, damn, this could be a competitive team if they put it all together. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.